Hey, what's up, everybody in the vinyl community and out there in YouTube land? Kindle, or the Spin Doctor and his Vinyl Mayhem. Here coming at you with another video. It has been a little over a week since I have made a video. It is Tuesday night, the 14th of June. So just a few more days until Record Store Day, drop number 2 on the 18th, which I'm really excited about. Gonna be out in Wilmington, North Carolina, visiting my friends at the Record Bar. You guys know who you are. See a few of you there, I know. Jerry, for sure, is the only one I know for sure. But anyway, gonna be out there, hoping to get some good titles, get some good stuff. Pretty excited about that. But what I wanted to talk about today is some stuff that I've gotten over the last couple weeks, and this past weekend. Had a really good time hanging out with my buddy Doug Osbury from Wilmington, North Carolina. You may know Doug from Big Love Vinyl. He runs that. He owns it. He is the CEO, all that good stuff. And he also can be found at the Record Bar on occasions, especially on Thursday nights for their live shows. But he came into town over the weekend for the Tears for Fears show. Doug's a huge fan, if you didn't know that about him already. But he came into town. We met up on Sunday after I got off of work. I normally don't work on Sundays. I normally don't work the weekends, but I worked this past Sunday. And because of that, I'll be able to have Friday off, which is a lot of fun. But anyway, so I'm a little thrown off actually from working on Sunday. I've been really extra tired, which is why I haven't made this video any sooner. But anyway, enough about that. Like I said, so Doug came into town. He wanted to hit all the shops in town, or in the area, of course, which of course. Big one he wanted to hit, obviously, was Noble Records. He knew that I live really close to it. I know the owner pretty well and a couple of the people that work there. So he wanted to go to that shop with me, hang out and dig through some bins of records, and that's what we did for a good long time. We got there about an hour and a half before they closed, and by the time Doug was done, he had a nice good sized stack of records, and it was after 6 o'clock. They were closing. The guy that was working that day is a buddy of mine, so he didn't mind staying a few extra minutes. But kids don't do that to people. If they close at a time, let them close at a time. Don't stay in the store. Leave. But anyway, so we had a lot of fun going through Noble Records. He found a lot of awesome stuff he was really excited about. And while we were digging, he pulled out a record and he was like, "Have you seen this record?" And I was like, "No, I've not seen this one." He's like, "Well, I'm buying it for you." I'm like, "Oh, man, you know, you don't have to do that," because Doug actually brought me some records that he had gotten for me while doing his thing, which I'll get more into that later. But he ended up buying me this record. So it is the Bee Gees' One. I don't know hardly anything about this album except for the fact that it came out in 1989. And that it's definitely a pop album. I haven't listened to it yet. Like I said, I haven't had the chance to really do a lot of listening over the weekend or anything. So I haven't had a chance to spin this one yet. But he said it's a really awesome pop album. You know, he asked, "Are you a fan of the Bee Gees?" I said, "Well, yeah, I am." Look, anyone that says they're not a fan of the Bee Gees, they're lying to you. They just don't want to admit it. But this is not a disco album. This is more of a pop album. And you gotta understand, these guys were great songwriters. Before disco came along, they had a career. Then, disco made them into what they are. But they've written a lot of songs. One of my personal favorites, actually, which has been covered by multiple people. But my favorite cover would be Gary Puckett and the Union Gap, the version of "To Love Somebody." If you haven't heard that, go find it. It sounds amazing. Gary Puckett's voice, just a beautiful song. One of the most beautiful songs I think ever written. But anyway, back to this album though. It came out in 1989. It was not the biggest success in the world. It was okay. I mean, again, they were labeled as a disco group, which, let's face it, that's really what they were. But this album came out, like I said, in 1989. I know I said that like 3 times. But I haven't gotten a chance to listen to it yet. Looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. Like I said, guys, the Bee Gees are really an awesome group, so give them a chance. Anyway, so he like I said, Doug got that for me while we were at Noble. Now, also while I was at Noble on Saturday, because I did go by Saturday to talk to Dylan and ask him some questions and do some wheeling and dealing, I guess. I did pick up a couple bargain albums as well. First one being this one here, Who's Greatest Hits. This is not an original or anything like that. This was a reissue from 1983. It's on the MCA Records Rainbow. I don't have any Who in my collection, and I love the Who, but the thing is, they have such a huge catalog of albums, and there's so many that I only like, maybe just a song or two on, or just, and so I'm like, I'm good with just getting a greatest hits album, and that's what this is. Now, however, it is missing some good songs on it that I was surprised to not see on it, so I will probably be adding more later on down the road, but this was a really good, cheap price. The vinyl is actually very clean. I actually just cleaned it. So, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you what I spent on it, but it was not a lot, let's put it that way. I think it was like $5. Well, technically it wasn't anything because I traded in some records. But anyway, got this. Really excited to have a Who album, the greatest hits. Every song on here is killer. This has been reissued a million times. There's a new reissue out that I think came out just a couple of years ago. But this is like a 1982 or 83 press. I haven't listened to it yet. Like I said, I just haven't had time. But really, really excited to have it. This next one I actually picked up a couple weeks ago from the Record Bar on their Thursday night show. They had it back in stock, and this is an album that you really need to have, I think, if you're a fan of the 90s. And it is Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill, excuse me. But this album, is really what jump-started her career. She had released, I think, 2 albums prior to this one, and they weren't really successful. But she met up with the right people. This album came out, and it is killer. I mean, everything on here is killer. I mean, you ought to know. Ironic. Just tons of classic stuff that you heard on the radio every day in the 90s over and over again, and still here today. With the passing of Taylor Hawkins recently, we all should remember that he played for her. Now, he's not on this record, actually. He was not a studio musician. He went and played live when Dave Grohl recruited him to the Foo Fighters. But you can't help but listen to this album and think about him as well, because when she was out on the road touring constantly, one of the biggest acts in the world at the time, he was behind the drum kit just playing away. So he may not have played on this record, but like I said, you can't help but think of him as well. But super excited to have this. This is just, like I said, this is an essential album to have. When it came out, I believe in 1996 or 5, 94, 5 or 6, one of those 3. Don't quote me on that. But it wasn't released on vinyl at the time, at least not in America. So, we've only had reissues of this here in America. But super excited to have it. It sounds good. Like I said, just a great album. Now, the next few albums I'm going to show you are all by the same artist. So, my last video, or not my last video, but 2 videos before that, which, by the way, thanks everyone for watching, was my Eric Clapton Unplugged, One Step by Mobile Fidelity. And, I love that album, but I'm just a huge Clapton fan to begin with, and I have a lot of his stuff. I now have a lot more. This was another pick from Saturday when I went to Noble the first time. And this is Just One Night by Eric Clapton. And this is a live album. It's a 2 LP set. A lot of great tracks on here. This was in promotion of his Backless album, which if you haven't heard that album, you really should listen to it. It's very underrated, very, very good. He's got a really good cover of Tulsa Time on that record, which is actually the opening track on this album. But I mean, this has, Lay Down Sally, Wonderful Tonight, After Midnight, Worried Life Blues, Double Trouble, Blues Power, Cocaine, Further On Up the Road. I mean, that's great killer stuff. And I've listened to this album before I had this, but it's a great live album. It came out, like I said, for his right after his Backless album came out. You know, I can't say enough about how much I love Eric Clapton as a guitar player, as a songwriter, as a performer. I have seen him live, but this is just a really cool live album. I was very glad to find it. Again, I think I maybe got it for like $8 or something like that at Noble. And Dylan, you know, working the deals with me. So, but it sounds really good. Really excited to have it. So this next record I'm going to show you, after I had gotten the Mobile Fidelity One Step, I was like looking and going, what do I need to add from Clapton's catalog that I don't have? And this was the first thing that popped in, and I was like, I have to have this record, because it was the album that came out before the Unplugged album, and it was a very good album, had a lot of big hits on it, and it's not one that I've seen out in the wild, so to speak. Like I never really saw it at record stores when I was looking and stuff, and this album is Eric Clapton Journeyman. And this album, like I said, came out in like 1989, I think. And we're talking about some great songs on this album. Bad Love, Old Love, Running on Faith, Pretendin', Before You Accuse Me. I mean, we're talking just great stuff. And I was at Noble Records a couple weeks ago, and I asked Dylan, I was like, how often do you see this record? He's like, oh, I've had it before. And he's like, but I'll keep a lookout for you. And I didn't think much of it. And I got home, and I ended up going on to BigLoveVinyl.com. Shout out to Doug's little baby there. And I saw that he had a copy. And so I messaged him like, hey man, I really need this. He's like, all right, cool. Well, I'll put it aside for you. I'm like, sweet. A few days later, I'm at home, and I get a text from Dylan. He's like, what was that record that you were looking for? And I told him. He said, oh, so it's this one? Well, looky there. So he picked it out for me, so I was like, oh, thanks, man. So I now have 2 copies of Journeyman. The vinyl on both of these are great. The cover is a little dinged up on this one. This one's in better shape, but you know, I mean, Doug hooking me up, and then Dylan, I'm like, I can't say no. I gotta, you know. So I now have 2 copies of this. Like I said, it's just a great album. Sounds amazing. Great blues, rock, just great everything. I love this album. So glad to have a copy, or 2, should I say. But if you don't know this album, go listen to it in its entirety. It is a great album. And like I said, this was the album that he did right before he did the Unplugged, and so I think that's why Before You Accuse Me is on the Unplugged, because it was on this, and Running on Faith. So anyway, super stoked to have those. The next one I got from the Record Bar on Thursday night as well, and this is an amazing album, and can also be considered a B.B. King album. It is B.B. King and Eric Clapton riding with the King. This album came out in 2000, and it was not released on vinyl at the time, at least not in America. And this is the 20th anniversary edition that came out a couple of years ago. It's a 2 LP set, and it actually has 2 extra tracks on it, which are really awesome. But this album, I remember I had the CD. It was so good. I mean, come on, you got 2 blues guitar playing legends playing together on one album. What more could you want? Everything on here is killer. I love this album, and so to be able to pick it up on vinyl, I was super excited about it. Super heavy duty, by the way. It sounds great, and like I don't know what else to say. I mean, this was actually a pretty big selling album, because I mean, it you know, it's not one of those albums that you were gonna hear on the radio, but it sold like 2 or 3 million copies back in 2000, which is pretty good considering, you know, like I said, at the time, MP3s and downloads were becoming more popular. And so, you know, it won a Grammy for Best Blues Album. You know, I mean, it's a killer album. If you haven't heard this and you're a blues fan, stream it, buy it, do whatever. It is awesome. So super excited to have this. Again, got it from the Record Bar on a Thursday night show. Now the last album I'm going to show is another one I haven't had the chance to listen to yet, because like I said, a lot of this I got over the course of the weekend, and I haven't had the time. But this is one of the things that Doug got for me, and I am so excited about it because I've never had a Japanese pressing of an album before. This is my very first, and I'm glad that my first Japanese pressing is of an Eric Clapton album, because again, I love Eric Clapton, and this was his second album. I'm going branded all of a sudden, but the official title is 461 Ocean Boulevard. Kind of an iconic cover, I think, a little bit, but this album came out in the early 70s, and it was pretty successful. It has his only #1 hit he's ever had, which is saying something considering Eric Clapton's been around for 40-50 years, really. And he's never had a #1 hit except for this one on this, and it's not even a song he wrote or was the first to perform. It was Bob Marley's I Shot the Sheriff that he did a cover of, and it was his only #1 hit. Still baffles my mind there. Another thing that kind of baffled my mind is the fact that my dad knew that. Now, my dad's a big music fan, you know, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't know statistics and all, he doesn't have all that, you know, kind of knowledge of things like that. But he knew that Eric Clapton's only #1 song was I Shot the Sheriff. And I just thought that was kind of funny. But great album. And to have a Japanese pressing of it with the OB, how cool is that? I'm very excited about it because I've heard Japanese pressings sound great. So I can't wait to listen to it to find out. So big thank you to my good buddy Doug for a fun weekend of hanging out at record stores and for bringing me some good stuff. I actually did give him something as well. I gave him a German pressing of Fleetwood Mac Rumors. I think he said that may have been his 20th copy of that album. But he's never had a German pressing of it, so he was excited about that. But yeah, all in all, a very awesome, like I said, weekend. Hanging out at Noble Records on Saturday with Dylan, and then hanging out with Doug at Noble Records and Premium Sound, by the way. We hit that place up as well. If you haven't been there, go there. It's a really cool place. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I can't wait to listen to all this. I haven't had a chance to yet, but I will. So guys, it's been, like I said, over a week, and so just a reminder, Record Store Day, June 18th drop coming up in just a few days. Go to your local record store and support them. Again, I'll be at Record Bar in Wilmington, North Carolina. But Repo Records is just down the road here. They do Record Store Day, Lunchbox Records. Go there. But both of those places are great. You can get great stuff. I fully support any record store, period, but any record store as well that participates, because it's a big deal for them. But I'm looking forward to it. Hope to get some good stuff. Guys, if you watched, thank you. You know, if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment for me. I appreciate it. My subscribers have gone up a little bit, so thank you for that. Again, I hope to see this thing grow. So thanks for hanging out with me for about 20 minutes to talk about these albums and my weekend. I had a lot of fun. Until next time, have a lot of fun finding new music to listen to. See you guys later.